Hello, wild ones. We're going to talk about knotting the end of our thread. I put a little knot in here. I'll show you how to do it. I like to get a little circle where the end is crossed over. Sorry about that. Get a little circle where the end's crossed over, and then just take and lift the loop and tuck your tail under. And since there's already a knot here, I just align. I kind of am pulling with my middle finger and my thumb and letting my other finger help align that knot on top. If I'm doing this kind of knot, it's because I have a place to bury it. So I have a place to hide this knot. And in this piece, I can hide it right underneath the top layer by take my needle, holding at the end where the needle and thread meet. So I'm going to needle with my right hand and then just put it through the edge of this top fabric and just tuck that tail underneath. Now I have a place to start today's stitch, which is a whip stitch. These are little packets, like kind of little pillows inspired by Tisha Moore, and her video is on Tracy Moore's channel about how to make these, but I like to fold back to hide my raw edge and then fold over again so that it sandwiches that middle. I added a clip at the kind of where my working hand is working toward. I'm going to work it this way towards my left hand. And I think of this as a really chunky whip stitch because I'm going to go all the way back. So I'm positioning my needle underneath the piece, a little bit over, but not too far, especially for this first one. I find it really helpful if you get good at holding your thread. I find if I can position my thumb to kind of hold that loop as I'm pulling through all the excess thread, it kind of sets it down. And I did almost backstitch this whip a little bit so that I could start knowing that this one's really firmly in place. Now, I'll show you the second and third one. What I'm aiming towards is this right here, where I get that really nice pattern of stitching. Sorry for bumping the camera. So now I'm going to come up right next to it. I'm going to kind of grab that leader thread and pull. These two are going to be really tight together, and that's kind of what I wanted. And now I'm going to go to the next one and give it a little bit more space. I'm aiming for about a 1/4 inch between stitches. And this one is not a pull so tight that you're really ranking it. This is like just get it to where it's pulled tight. But if I pull really tight, I'm going to really bind that edge. Sometimes that's what you want, but a lot of the times for pieces like this, I like to give them just a little bit of room and space to live. And it kind of wrinkles that edge if you pull really, really tight. So that's a chunky boy, 1/4 of an inch whip stitch distance. Now, I wanted to show you another variety. And I'm going to show you this one on the same kind of packet, but this is a piece that I think I probably cut it off a pair of pants that I'd already hemmed. And so I have this is already like folded under and hemmed. So I can take this green piece and fold it under, and then instead of whip stitching all the way around, I'm just going to whip stitch this edge too to show you a different variety of whip stitching. I'm still going to work from my needle hand working toward my my working hand, and actually I'm gonna switch it so that my thumb is on top and my pointer finger is pinching on bottom. And this time I'm just gonna grab the kind of most minimal I can, pushing it through. This is a lot thicker thread. Might not have got the right needle on this one. So I'm running into, this is a really thick thread to pull through this many layers of fabric. So it's a little bit hard to get the needle through to show you, but I wanted you to be able to see the stitches and for it to be a smaller whip stitch. So if you have this problem where you can't quite get that back end of the needle through, you can either wear a thimble. This is a thimble I modified with a wood burner outside because it's plastic. But I added a little divot and a line for it to, and I actually cut the whole top off the needle or the thimble as well, so it would sit down farther, because I tend to push with like right in here of my third finger. So I made it so that I could have a little something to push with. So I could use this, the edge of this thimble, to push through. If you don't have a thimble you work with, you could take it and either set it down on the table if you're worried about scratching your table. The handle of a pair of scissors works really well for this, where you're pushing on the fabric around the needle to get that needle through. And even then, you might have to really just grip it and rip it. To quote, I think WWE wrestling from my childhood, maybe? I don't know. Or was that Happy Gilmore? I am unsure. And that one, because I was pushing so hard, I got a little off on how far I was going down on the back. But these are really nice, delicate. If you're using a very small thread, it'll become a very delicate stitch. But I really love how that binds two pieces, and it's actually, because this is folded over, so this is two pieces plus a piece of lining fabric, which is fleece, and that's kind of hard to get through too. And I can feel that the fleece is actually in this edge. And then I doubled over cotton on the back. So I'm going through 5 layers of fabric. That's probably why this is a little harder. I went with a little sharper, thinner needle, and then I'm using my tools. It's really nice if your scissor has something you can like kind of wedge that needle in and then really push down. And I find twisting your fabric back and forth, obviously I know I'm using the wrong thread for this application, but I really wanted you to be able to see it. And I do end up in situations where I'm stitching and it's like this, where it's just harder to get through than I thought it would be. That's okay. You can find ways around it. You can say, okay, I'm done with this thread. I'm going to switch to a much thinner thread for this end. I can demo that for you with, this is just a single or 2 pieces of embroidery floss. This is more of a tapestry thread, a woven cotton. So this is actually hooked up to that other project I was working on, but let's try it. So sharp needle and thinner thread, yeah, it's gonna get right through. And I'm not gonna pull that in very tight, but let's go through again. So I'm whip stitching. like this to get through. And that will just be a more delicate stitch as well. This is more chunky stitch. I really like the texture and tactile feel. The other thing you can do is, I found that I wanted to add this extra little bit of white fabric in here because I just wasn't liking how it was looking without a little extra. So these are all very uniformed. This is where I switched into a turquoise thread. So there's turquoise, and I love going in to my other whip stitches if I'm switching thread color, so it kind of makes it switch on the edge. And then back around here, and then I went all the way up and all the way back, so I ended up stitching this a couple more times. I actually think the messiness makes it look cooler. I'm all about making a piece feel almost repaired as part of the look I really like. I love, like, this is a raw edge in here, and I don't leave a lot of raw edges as much, but I think that will like floof out over time and just look really cool. And I kind of like it juxtaposed to these really tight bound edges. This is also raw edged back down here, so it's kind of like referencing each other. And then the other whip stitching, I was looking for that other piece, there it is. This one was whip stitched with the thicker or cotton woven yarn, and then this is that 2-strand embroidery floss, just finishing up that little edge. I love changing thread colors to change the piece, and I think it really is interesting and unique, and especially these little tiny patches or packets. When you build them all up together, they look more interesting the more shapes and sizes and colors you kind of have next to each other. I really love the look of it.